what's in your mind, for you and for I. I'm trying to decide from the look in your eyes, yeah. I mean besides, but your feelings inside you, I'm messing up my mind.
Today we have
a special guest.
Stixx.
Thank you. Yay.
Boom, boom, boom.
All snaps.
Welcome to episode 9. We're 9 weeks in, which is pretty crazy. And I'm really excited to get Stixx on here right now. So for those of you that don't know, we got a small, tight-knit, mom and pop family style. No, we got a good small team, and I like it that way. Mm-hmm. It's cool, you know, we all know each other really well and everything. And so, Stixx, we've been working with you for how long?
Ooh, a year and a half?
I think we started DMing January last year.
Yes.
And then we started a little bit until May of last year. Yeah. And then we stopped for 3 months, and then
we got into it.
Yeah, so it's been a year.
Yeah, it's been about a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
Time flies.
Dude, time does fly, man. And sometimes I think about how, and I'm sure we'll get into this, but you kind of divided the year up by quarters, yes. Right? And you would tell us, hey, the first quarter of the year, second quarter of the year. And that just totally changed how I think about the music industry. And I think just business in general.
Nice.
And trying to put projects out. And that's awesome. But so for everybody listening, Stixx is a very well-seasoned, very experienced, entertainment and music industry professional. And I'm just ecstatic to even be able to pick your brain right now, even though we've done it a bunch of times, Yes. And I'm even more happy that we could just say we're all homies and stuff, It's so it's a cool vibe in here. But Stixx, can you tell us kind of your entertainment history, music and everything, and kind of how you got to where you are today?
Who is Stixx?
Who is Stixx?
Oh, that's a big book. Let's see, I got into it when I was about 20, so that's 16 years ago. And it's funny because when I didn't kind of grow up wanting to be a dancer. Mm-hmm. That kind of wasn't my thing. That wasn't in my vocabulary or any kind of direction I was going into. Medicine was kind of my thing. Mm-hmm. And then kind of my adopted family, they worked in the music industry. They worked with Janet Jackson, Megan Good and everybody else back in the days. And just being around their energy and being around them, it was very new, and it just was very exciting. So getting to work with these people, and I started at 16 just doing filing stuff. That's how I kind of saw it and saw the people. Britney Spears would walk in. She was doing her Pepsi commercial deal with all of that.
Yeah.
So it was very interesting. And then when I saw her video, so Britney's kind of the one who made me want to be that dancer, because when she came out with Baby One More Time and all of that, I was just like, who are these people? And it just caught my interest. And then I dabbled in it for a bit, and I was just like, okay, I can't do this, but when I turned 20, long story short, turned 20, I was like, I'm gonna go for it. And I always give myself years. So I'm like, if I don't do anything in 5 years, then I need to go somewhere else, do something completely different.
Yeah.
But I always say I got blessed and lucky to meet the right people. I was an extra in The Longest Yard with the Adam Sandlers and all of them.
That was you? Oh my gosh.
I've been idolizing that guy since I was a kid.
The guy in the wall.
I love it. You're like, yeah. No, but one of the cheerleaders, his name was Andre. And I knew who he was because I was a Britney fan. He was one of Britney's main core dancers and choreographers. So I was like, I got to meet him. At that time, I was dabbling in basic hip-hop classes and basic stuff. And then I saw him. And I was like, hey, do you remember me? And blah, blah, blah. So we talked real quick. And then he was a technical dancer. So completely different from hip-hop dancing. Okay. They're two different worlds. And it just looked interesting. I get very intrigued at things from time to time, especially if it feels good. I'm all about feel. And it felt amazing. So seeing him and moving and doing all these crazy stuff, I was like, But again, at that time, I was already 21. So being 21 already, trying to learn something completely different, especially technique. Never did a split in my life. Getting into these splits and but talking to him, he's like, if you want to assist me, he actually denied me a few times. He said no, lots of times. But then one day he called me, he's like, if you're serious, you need to audition for me. Kind of was like, okay. Didn't know any kind of jazz or anything. So when I did audition, it was basically taking his class. I failed. I crashed, burned. I mean, again, I'm not a technical dancer. He's doing all these leaps and everything. But one of the things afterwards, he came up to me and was just like, you didn't stop. He's like, that's what caught my attention. You know, usually people are like, they'll sit down and just kind of just stop. He's like, you kept going, even if you looked a mess. He's like, you know, so he's, I see something in you. And that's kind of where it took off. He trained me for 6 months and then took me on my first teaching tour with him. So I got to travel out of state for the first time in my life. You know, I got to go like Miami, Nashville, Texas, like so many amazing places. And yeah, from there, just meeting the right people, you know, meeting big dancers that I saw on TV, big choreographers, Michael Jackson choreographers, you know, Britney's choreographers. And at my time, you had the Christina Aguilera's, you know, so you had the Stixx and all that. So getting to see and being in a circle of greatness, because, you know, these are legendary choreographers, you know, so it was just very inspiring. And I booked my first M&M job. That was my first big artist job, you know, so, and again, that was just meeting people. You know, I met this girl named Priscilla. She was one of Britney's main dancers at that time. For Give Me More, that's that whole album that came out. And then from there, she was like, hey, Stixx, she's like, I have a call from the director, Joseph, that's doing Eminem's video. He's like, he's looking for people like you, your style, your look, you know, very Elvis Presley kind of vibe. And yeah, that was like, and then from there, it just took off. Got to work with Selena Gomez. Was a part of her tour. I got to choreograph a few of her songs. And then, who else? Stevie Wonder, Shaka Khan, Dr. Dre.
Damn.
So it's just a process. I always say, for me, for my life and my journey in this, it's always been a process because I'm a small person. So back in the days when you danced, there was always these big guys, you know, and if you weren't a big guy and you were a small guy, you were a b-boy. They're the ones flipping and doing all of the stuff. Or dancing, of course, for Britney, because her dancers and stuff weren't big, but I wasn't at that stature yet in that time. Now, it's a whole different story. Now I've learned how to move as big as the bigger guys without standing out as a scrawny little person, you know. But yeah, it's definitely been a journey. Yeah. And it's been an amazing one. I mean, 16 years. Like,
that's awesome.
It's already going to, 16 years.
So how important is mentorship, do you think? Because even though we're all homies and whatever, we work together, I think we consider you as like a mentor because you've been in the game. You have opened our eyes to things that we haven't seen. And I think, in my opinion, what I've realized from experience working with you is that unless you have a mentor who can see in a different lens than you, you're kind of running in this treadmill kind of thing because you don't know. You have a lack of knowledge of like what's really out there, what things really take and everything. So like, how important is mentorship to you, do you think?
I think you need a foundation.
Okay.
So when you have people who have done it and been in it and trying to be where you want to be, it's very important to have somebody who's been there that could guide you through the ropes because the industry is crazy. Everybody thinks it's huge, but it's so small. You know, everybody knows each other. The right people know each other. I mean, we live in a different age today, you know, where everybody knows everybody now because social media. But having somebody who knows the ups and also knows the downs. You know, the downs are most important part because success, great, but sometimes you have downtimes. And those downtimes are the important times because that's when you start working on your craft. Some people just rest and they but the mentor, the person who is pushing you, teaches you even through the downtimes. You still got to work even harder as if it was still your uptimes because when you go back out there, you have to be as strong as you were or even stronger to put out there because that's how you keep growing. A lot of people get comfortable and they stay. But they also disappear in a few years. You know, so it's definitely
staying relevant.
Yeah. Again, one of my people who mentors me. I have a few mentors. But he's been in it since I've known him. I was 16. You know, he's the one who's danced for the Janets, the old school Janets, and, you know, all the Mandy Moores, who people don't know today, but I love me some Mandy Moore. So he...
You know her?
Mandy Moore? Yeah, that's my cousin, dude.
Oh my gosh. That's
Like,
sick.
yeah, of course, yeah.
No, so having somebody who's been there, done it, understands it is definitely important. Especially because sometimes we feel down on ourselves. So it's very easy to beat yourself up. But then when you have somebody that you could talk to that understands exactly why you're beating yourself up, it feels good because then you know that there's somebody who's been there.
Okay, now how important is honesty when working with a mentor? Because I already know the answer, but like I want you to say, like, how important is it to be like brutally honest with how somebody is doing, like, in their path? Like, are they doing the wrong thing? How is their ego in check? You know what I mean? So how important is honesty? Because I think you really woke me up to that.
I mean, honestly, first you got to be honest with yourself.
Yeah.
I always feel people who are not honest with themselves always have trouble. So if you're going to mentor somebody, you can't say good job all the time because then there's no growth. And, you know, for me, I love to be behind the scenes because I hear what everybody's saying. Because when you're in front living that life, you don't hear what people are saying. And if you do, you just don't care. But when everybody's saying the same thing, it's like, this is what you need to do. You know, so if your vocals are off or something, this is where you were at. You know, this is where you went straight flat on there. You know, so it's good to have that relationship. And there's a difference between building and just knocking somebody completely down. You know?
Totally.
So when you build somebody's character, it's always good to definitely correct them and just completely be honest with one another, you know, because at the end of the day, you go as far as I go, you know, so if you go up there, guess who's going with you? And if I'm up there, guess who I'm bringing with me? You know, so it's like a train.
Yeah, because me and Jacob talk about this all the time in all our podcasts. Like, even though we're a team, like, and we're all friends, you got to put aside the friendship and be like, you know what? I want you, like, a good friend actually would be like, I want you to grow. So here's the truth.
Yeah.
The truth is that you're not at the level that you need to be. You're not putting in the work that you need to. And like what you told me before, you're like, you could have worked on these past couple months in quarantine. Yes, I was working on other things, but you put it in my head like, yo, you messed up because you didn't focus on this as well. And so I think that is so important to like growing, like what you were saying, and like just being brutally honest.
Oh yeah.
You know?
And again, like I said, and that's what the mentor comes in.
Yeah.
You know, the mentor comes into that role of, you know, this is what you're not doing. You had time, you know, there's so much time in a day and even in a week, you know, and it doesn't take that long to just work on your craft. You know, if you're a songwriter, you're a producer, okay, that's a few hours and hours. It's like knowing how to manage your life. You know, Michael Jackson did it. I mean, Usher did it. Beyonce. I mean, everybody in the industry, great artists have done it because they understand, okay, I need to be a photo shoot this time. From there, I got to go straight to music video shoot. From there, I got a commercial shoot all in one day. You know, so you have to learn how to manage.
Yeah.
And if you want to be the next best thing, you have to definitely understand your craft. And you learn that by people who tell you what you need to do.
So I think that's a good segue into like the main topic of the podcast, would you say? What makes a great artist? Like, what separates someone who's great, or one of the greats, right, versus someone who's just kind of another cool artist that you see? You know, what's the separator?
I mean, work ethic.
Okay.
Definitely. I mean, today, a lot of people always say comfortable, you know, because everybody's comfortable.
Yeah.
You make a good beat, you make something that people move to, and you think you're the next best thing.
Or you got
know?
like a cool amount of followers and you think you're chilling.
We won't even get into followers. That's a whole nother story. No, but it's just different because today we have, I feel like the younger generation has a good foot in the door because of social media. You know, social media can make or break you now compared to what it was back in the day when, you know, we're barely on those little Microsoft computers with all of, you know, big old box computers. So there was nothing back then. You had to go out.
Yeah.
You had to mingle. You had to network. Network was crazy. But to be that it factor, it's working hard. It's what people always like, what separates you from you? Well, he works harder night, day. You know, he's studying other people that were before him. He's working on learning new instruments, learning new style, movement-wise. So the other person is just making fun beats, making fun little steps, getting views, but how long will that last?
Yeah.
You know, it's people look at the now and they don't look 10 years from now. You know, legends, and I think Missy Elliott said it, she said, come to me after 10 years of you been doing it and still being relevant. You know, it's not easy. Everybody thinks, oh yeah, I'm going to be here. Yeah, you may be here for 4 or 5 years, but then you slowly die down because A, your music sounds the same. You know, B, the way you look, your style, nothing's changed. And that's why I love going to like the Chris Browns and the Michael Jackson, because Chris looks up to Michael. Chris looked up definitely to style and everything, but Chris added his own flavor because, you know, he does the crumping and he does the street style. You know, Michael was very crisp and clean because he studied the Bob Fosse's, the, you know, Fred Astaire's. And if you don't know who they are, look them up. So he studied the greats, you know, so the great choreographers and entertainers at that time. So Michael's like, interesting, especially how people moved in the style and the way they moved and how they interpreted, you know, their music. And I feel like that's today people just kind of make stuff to throw it out there. So there's no real craft. There's no real love behind it. And that's what separates like the Michaels, the Chris's, the Ushers and stuff compared to today, because everything they did was big.
So, okay, what do you think about the word talent? Because what I'm kind of realizing from my experience is that people aren't born just with this crazy, insane gifts to be a legend. I think, like, from what I've seen, like someone like a Michael Jackson, you know, he's been doing this shit since he was like, what, 4 or whatever. So he's put in more hours than anybody else and studied it more and put in more practice. So do you think that some people are naturally more gifted than others, or do you think that it just depends on how long you've been doing it plus your experience? Like, do you think someone who is an average Joe can become a Michael Jackson or a Chris Brown? You know what I'm saying? Like,
yes.
Okay.
And why I say yes is because going back to the Michaels, Michael had a father and he had brothers that were also entertainment. He had a sister, you know. When you have a father that pushes you and, you know, so there's no real, oh, I'm going to go play games, or I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go like a normal type of person would do. There was like wake up and work, you know, so a work ethic played a huge part in it. So when you're, I don't want to say forced, but when you're put into...
Oh, he was forced. He was beat and shit, like, to do it.
I'm sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure. But when you have that push of doing something, all you do is get better. You know, either you get better or you just become horrible because you don't want to do it. But the thing is with Michael, and this is why I go back into the Bob Fosse's and stuff, because he loved his, like, the Broadway, you know, the tap, the musicals. That was his thing. And Smooth Criminal was done before Smooth Criminal even came out. It was basically a copy. Not a whole copy, but it was...
The outfit.
Everything from, I believe, Bob Fosse. And the way the whole setup was, you just look at them and you're just like, wow, Michael copied it from him. But it's not that he copied, he looked up to him. And Michael just made it his own. You know, same thing with Chris Brown. Chris Brown looks up to Michael. So when he does stuff, he just makes it his own. And that's kind of where people today, when they copy you, they literally copy you. They don't make anything their own.
I heard this quote, good artists copy and great artists steal.
Of course.
Is that kind of what you mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
Pretty much. It's, I hate the word still.
Okay.
I like to say finding your identity, because a lot of people, they fall into this robot style, you know, to where you have to, you basically you look like that person in front of you. But those kind of people, when you go into the music labels, they say, we already have one of those people. We don't need another one. And those people actually made us money. You know, they gave us hits, they gave us amazingness, and you're going to try to follow in somebody else's footsteps instead of just being you. You know, so being original is huge, you know, because that's what separates you from the next person. Like, you don't see somebody saying, there's another Usher. No, there's only one Usher. Same thing with any artist, Janet, Michael, you know, who else? Stevie Wonder. I love me some Stevie Wonder. And why I always say it's important to understand your artist outside of your own style is because that's what's going to make you great. It's studying. You know, if you're going to stay with one style and stay there, you're not going to be here 10 years. You know, Pharrell, love him. Timberland, love him. And if you see their track record, so many different styles. Rap, you have your, what is it?
It's almost like
Pop.
it's almost like they take their sauce and adapt it to whatever's like the new thing, but put them into it.
Of course,
you know what I mean?
of course. But again, you have to understand music to be able to do that.
Yeah.
So like, if I'm a new female artist, Timberland's worked with a lot of them. You know, Pharrell's worked with a lot of them. Jay-Z has worked with a lot of them. So people are like, oh, Jay-Z's a rapper. But if you look at who he's worked with, there's females in there, you know, so he knows how to switch it up. And if you see what the instruments they know how to play, it's not so much, oh, they're just making a beat. You know, a lot of people today just make beats and they're like, it's fire. Yeah, it may be fire, but is it a hit? And that's kind of where the separation comes. Everybody gets that confused. They're like, oh, this is fire. But yeah, it may move you, it may give you a little dance for TikTok and stuff like that. But will it sell records? Will it be platinum? Will it be gold? You know, that's what separates somebody else who's in there trying to dissect their music and trying to add certain feel and certain flavors to it. You know, so...
Well, I feel like with today's landscape, there's a lot of artists, so you can see what everyone else is doing. Like you said, back when we were on these big boxy ass Windows computers and everything, you couldn't see what this artist down the street was doing. You couldn't see your competition or anything. And I feel like what a lot of artists are doing nowadays is they're able to see, oh, hey, that works. And we get to see that it works because I can see the number of likes. Okay, let me adopt this and take it and do it and see if it works for me. I feel like there's more artists than ever now who obviously are like coming up. So, you know, back in Michael's era, and when you're looking, even like, you know, before 2010, even in the early 2010s, it's crazy. We were just talking about how the music industry just fucking continually changes. But, you know, there were a couple of artists that were huge. Now it's like there's tons of artists that are average. There's tons and tons of people with 100K followers. There's tons and tons of people that are at this mid-level, but no one's poking through and being the next JB or the next Chris Brown. And I feel like from what you're saying, it's like everybody's just kind of taking this, hey, this works. I'm comfortable with it. Let's roll with that. But there's no one out there who's the Michael Jackson or the Chris Brown who's saying, oh, fuck no. I'm going to be at the top. And that's like like Ryan and I were just having a conversation. I said, because my dad and I were talking about it. And that's funny that you just met my parents before this. I thought that was awesome. I thought that was awesome that they were there while you were here. I was like, oh, great, you know, timing and everything.
It's
but
so funny.
My dad and I were talking, and then Ryan and I started talking about it. Like, is there ever going to be another huge artist? Like Ryan was saying, maybe Justin Bieber was the last phenomenon right before like the age of streaming and into the 2010s and 2015, and these huge guys, you know, there's guys like Post Malone and a couple other people who are like huge, like Billie Eilish.
Well, he was
or
even
Drake.
before though, too.
Yeah, that's true. Drake's an OG in that sense. But do you think there's ever going to be another Michael, Chris Brown, Drake?
That's hard to say just because I don't know 10 years from now. I mean, I don't. But at today, if we're speaking today, no. I mean, I love the Post Malones. I mean, I love the Jacob Lattimores and stuff like that. Like, they're sick artists in themselves. I want to use this as an example, and hopefully they don't hate me for this, but B2K. Those are my boys. Love B2K. I know a few of them, but when they do individual stuff, it's not as big as if they were B2K. If they're the group, oh yeah, amazing, sold out, packed. Separately, only one that I can say is Omarion, because Omarion did his thing. But at the end of the day, who else? Going to the NSYNCs, you have 5 guys who broke through. JT. JT. Yeah. So because they understood the process, that's why they were able to stay relevant. Today, the young people, they don't understand a process. They know the process is exactly. They understand, I have to make a song. They have the right connections. They have the right studio. They'll make a fun song. But will it be the top? Will it be that big MJ song, Chris Brown song? And I love Chris to death. One of the things I like about him is because he has this work ethic that you can't trash the guy for his work ethic. He's a hustler.
Agreed.
He and his videos that he puts out, he puts in work.
He's put out like over 200 videos.
Yeah, but every video he's done though, there's something amazing about it. Today, people, of course, everybody's on a budget. Chris Brown's budget's usually different compared to somebody else's budget who's a little bit lower than him. Of course, we get that. But at the end of the day, if you have a good team, and even with a small budget, you can make an amazing video. But people...
No help. Anywho.
No, but people today don't understand that, and they rely on themselves.
Yeah.
So
do you think it also has to do with, like, going back to his question, like the accessibility of artists now because of social media and everything? Because I think with Michael, the whole thing of not being accessible to him created like this untouchable figure that when you saw him in concert, you fucking passed out because it was like, you know what I'm saying?
Because not everybody did it.
No, I know.
So when the one person does it, you're like, oh shit. But now
course.
it's like, oh, I meet music artists all the fucking time.
Yeah.
It's not as mysterious and special anymore. And that's what kind of saddens me about it a little bit. It's like, fuck, dude, like, I'm trying to build the next Chris Brown right here, But then there is always that thought, like the reality of it's just like with the way that the industry is and the world is, is that achievable?
I mean, it is. And this is why I was going to say is because, yes, okay, if I'm an artist and I'm just like, okay, I want to be the next Chris Brown, it's not going to happen because that's Chris. Yeah. Chris already took that title. I need to be Stixx, the artist. Who do I want people to look at Stixx as? Do I want them to see colorful? Do I want them to see visual? Am I going to do animation videos? There is a band that does animation. I can't think of their freaking names right now. There you go. All their videos are animation, but they're sick. They left that stamp on that. So when other people try to do it, you're like, who do you think of first? You think of them first. So you have to find your paint. You have to find your lane and how you want to have people look at you as.
Wow.
You know? So it's again, process because you have to experiment. You have to play. And I feel like when Chris Brown, when he first did his Run It and all that like that, he was the baggy pants, the very FUBU kind of looking tracksuits and all of that stuff. So, and then from there he went to the fedoras and the dress for, which one was it? I can't get his name right now. Chris Brown, when he was in Train Station. Anybody?
Oh, Give Me That remix?
Give Me That. Yeah. That one. His whole outfit changed. Now he's more suited up and stuff like that. And then from there, he just kept growing and growing. And now he's full of color. Now he has all of these fun, of course, he's
like
always
street and shit.
Yeah, he loves his girls. So, he has all that neon colors.
He's got it right.
Right. So, but that's
not that it's wrong if you don't, but
I appreciate it.
No, but that's what I'm saying. He played. He understood.
Yeah.
And today people, they get scared. Artists today, they don't want to come off like a certain way because they're like, oh, then people are going to look at me a certain way. But at the end of the day...
That's the point.
So I get that. I agree with that. Going off of what he is saying, what about in terms of measuring the size of impact / success? Like, so we get the authenticity part that makes sense. But as far as like measuring like next Chris Brown, as far as like the amount of impact and success and money, we'll say, or fame or what, you know what I'm saying, like that level. So how about that? Like,
how to get to that level?
well, do you think that is, what was your question? Like,
Do you ever think, so the question was, do you ever think there's going to be an artist as huge and impactful and mysterious?
I mean,
and
there,
just like,
there
level-wise.
can. There can. Again, if whoever it is works hard, studies, you know, and again, Chris studied Michael. So he studied who? Somebody great. He and the ushers and whoever else he looked up to. So he studied. People today don't look up to nobody. They just look at themselves and they're like, oh, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
You know, I have my little hype group that are always around me that hype me up. So I'm going to just do it this way. So they don't have time to study, you know? So again, it's just on who you look up to and then who did they look up to, you know? So there can be, there definitely can be. But today I feel like people rely on social media. And I feel like JB got the beginning of that social media because he blew up from social media. You know, he was that big social media, and there has never been another one like him. You know, he's made so much money and he's made so many things, but that's because it was the beginning of something big, which was the YouTube and all of that stuff. And then you had a whole bunch of fangirls. If you have a whole bunch of fangirls, you're going to be set, you know, because they grow with you.
write that down.
You know, so he was how old? Like what, 14, 15 years old, 16 years old? He had a whole bunch of young people following him.
Yeah.
So he hit that age mark to where he got lucky. You know, going any older, going any younger, then, you know, you have to play with it a certain way. But yeah, I feel like, will there be another one of those? No.
I would say the only thing with that, like, if tell me if you agree with this. If you blow up at a young age, right? Now, yes, that is a great thing, but now to make that transition to become more mature is very, very, very tricky. Like, to where people kind of like, it takes people a long time to really accept that you have become like so, someone like an Usher is kind of different because I think Diddy took him under his wing and he had that mature presence at a young age, so it was like cool. But like JB, like I just remember seeing him struggle like between like 2011 and like 2014 or whatever to like really try to get people to like accept him as like this mature artist.
He was still that young kid. He was
Exactly,
still
yeah.
the baby. But, you know, for years when people said Justin Bieber, I thought of baby.
Yeah.
And I thought of this 14-year-old kid, and then I saw a picture of him. I'm like, oh, this dude's a grown-ass man.
Yeah.
So I don't know if this is the question that you were going to ask, but like I think we've talked about this too. Like, we don't want to get stuck in one category or
Yeah.
whatever, you know. It's like, is it difficult? Well, obviously it is difficult, but you know, how can people transition from like one iteration or one form or whatever to another and kind of make it easy? Because, you know, like he said, like, dude, it feels like for a couple years no one accepted that transition of Justin from this like little kid to a man. You
I
know?
mean, they did and they didn't. And I could see why, because if you still saw his, even when he was going through that whole time of growing up, I would say he still had a huge following.
Yeah.
It's not like he lost millions of followers. They're like, oh no, he just didn't get millions of new followers, but he still had a shitload of people
His
following
diehards.
him. Yeah. So no matter what, people are going to have to accept you're growing.
Yeah.
And it's either you force it to them or you just kind of say, this is who I am. You either love me or you don't.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you know, you can't be singing Baby at the age of 30, you know, talking to, it was a young song. It was meant to have that kind of age group. I'm out of high school, or I'm in high school and I'm with my girl, whatever.
Yeah.
So it was that kind of feel. But I feel like that's when people start to rebel. And they start to leak certain things out, and they start to, because they want people to understand they're not the 14-year-old little boy that you saw, you know. So now they're taking shirtless pictures and they're taking all this to show people like they are manly, you know. And JB, no matter what, it's kind of, even today when I see him like on his thing, doing his thing, I still see that little boy, you know. And that's just because that's who I fell in love watching, with that little boy that was just fun, full of energy. And yes, he is that today, you know, in his own little ways and stuff. But at the end of the day, you're either going to see them the way they are, or you're just going to respect them for their craft that they've done.
Yeah.
You know, and I respect him for everything that he's done because I understand the work that he's done.
So, okay. Did you have a question or?
Yeah, I did, but it's on a different topic. So
Okay.
yeah.
So on a broad, this is probably a broad question, but so let's take someone, right, who gets discovered, like Justin, right, gets discovered by Scooter. Yes, they have their struggles and everything, but you know they have the connects, Usher, whatever. So let's take someone who gets lucky like that, or you know what? I'm not gonna take that away because I think that he's a hardworking dude and everything, but in his situation, the timing and all that kind of stuff, versus someone who is, let's say, an average Joe, who really wants to be at that level, but has a cool, like for me, for example, I think that I have a cool team, right? Or we're a cool team. We have very little resources, you know, a little bit of a connection with people or whatever, but just like someone who, okay, so like for me, I'm trying to become like a star level, right?
The next thing.
Exactly. But so with the limited resources, how can someone like me and our team get to that level? How do we navigate that? It's such a broad question, but I'm curious to see like your insight like on that.
And I think we've had talked about this before. You know, you have to have a foundation. So, if, for example, if I'm going back to me, if I was the artist and I had no team and it was just me, so now what I have to figure out is where do I want to be? And I always say 5 years because 5 years sounds like a long time, but it's really short. You know, it's one of those things to where you could do a lot in 5 years. Resources, a lot of people. It's different. Okay, it's hard to say because a lot of the young artists today, they have parents who have shitload of money and they could pour as much as they want. But with somebody like for me, for example, if I was the artist and I had no money and I had to work a 9 to 5, I have to understand what I can buy and I can't buy. So if I want a really dope video, because your first impressions are always everything. You know,
Yeah.
So if I want to make a super dope video to show people what I get, because sometimes you get one chance, because you can either spend your money on a whole bunch of little mediocre videos and get no love, or you could save up and do that one big thing to where that catches somebody's attention. They're like, who did this? You know, and I've worked with artists like that, new artists, way long time ago when I was working with the Messengers. You know, they're amazing people, and they were going back to the boy band thing that I was working with. I worked with a little boy band called the Boy Band Project, and seeing their process. And you know, yes, they had people who had very well-known names, but they also still had a budget. You know, so what they did was you find people. You know, it's searching. You got to do your homework. So they found a cameraman, videographer, sick of, you know, he works with, I'll get his name in a second. But he's part of an amazing camp. And he was just like, hey, he loves what he does. And he's like, I'll shoot the video for this much, which was nothing. You know what I'm saying? So these boys, their manager at that time was paying out of his pocket, you know, and he didn't have that much money either, but he wasn't broke either. But at the end of the day, he poured in and he made the right decisions, you know. So like I said, you could make a whole bunch of videos and still have nothing, or you could just make that one video. And that's what we did. We made that one video and it took off. It was just like, everybody was feeling it. And next, you know, the second video, we made even better than the first video. So in order to get to that next level with very little, you definitely need to be smart. Spending is a big thing. I always like to know, if I'm going to work with somebody, I like to know what they've done. You know, let me see what your past work has done. If you have videos, let me see if you're a director. Let me see, because I have a certain eye to where I watch enough videos to understand a video, if that makes sense. So it's easy for me to sit there and see if you have that eye, you know, and if you don't, it's you can see it in your work, you know. Same thing with a producer. You work with this producer, you're spending all this money, and guess what? You don't have that much money to be spending. So you have to be very picky. So either make 1 million songs and spend so much money or make one hit, you know, and get the right people to want to be part of your team. And then that's when people come in and favors come in, and, you know, and everybody wants to grow. But in order to get there, you know, you need to make that one. It's always that one, just so people could listen and believe in you. Because again, you could have 1 million songs and all you have is 1 million songs, you know, and yes, you have your little group, but if you want to get that income in and find the big dogs, then you just need to find that one thing that separates. So it's a 50-50, you know, so it's very simple. I always say math because it is. It's like 2 + 2 is 4. We get that. So you have yourself and your team. You know, you're the manager. You know, I do my part and you're the artist. So as you being the artist, you have to understand this is where you want to be in 5 years. And it's your team. We have to have the same vision for you. You know, so if you're like, I want to do this dope video, realistically, do we have the budget? No, we could wait. You know, if you really want it, some people don't like to wait. They're like, we need to pull it out now. It becomes a now thing. So you're really not working on the craft. It's good, but it doesn't mean it's great.
Yeah.
You know? And again, going back to the Michaels, everything he put out, he has 1 million songs that were in the vault, but he only put out the great. For one, money. He's spending so much money on one video. You know, the most expensive video he did was $1 million, more than $1 million. You know what I'm saying? But he was smart. He understood stories. So working with somebody like you, I get, you know, you want to be to the top, but to be onto that top, it takes a while.
Yeah.
You know, it's a process.
That's interesting what you said about Michael, how he was very selective over his releases. Because you take someone like Chris Brown, right? And this guy has like thousands of songs released, you know? So I think it depends on the artist and what you want to. But I do agree. I think that it's like, at the end of the day, it's like that one project that, you know, catapults. For me as an artist, I've always enjoyed just my passion is just making songs, you know what I'm saying? And like, I'm proud of like the songs I make. So I always want to put them out. If nothing happens, fuck it. You know what I'm saying? Like, I know it's going to be the 1 or 2 songs that, you know, gets to the next level. But I've always wanted to have a catalog to where, you know, if I have a show or whatever, we always have we have a whole artillery of shit we could pull out. A super fan can go back and like geek out and like listen to everything, you know what I'm saying? Like, can binge all this shit. But that's interesting what you said.
Yeah. I think that at just a basic level, especially with social media and everything, everybody wants to put 1 million things out. And in a sense, you have to.
Yeah.
You got to put a lot of shit out.
That's if you want to. Okay, sorry, not to interrupt you. That's if you want to be that social media person. Going to JB. Who do you know JB as for? Social media. You know, yes, he works his ass off now, but where did you first find him? Social media. You know, so. Going back, social media is a whole different topic. You know, yeah, people depend on social media, but just because, again, you have 20 million followers, doesn't mean you're going to be making #1 hits.
Yeah.
So let me ask this question then. Do you think that someone can be a very big star and not have social media be like a main priority for them? Or do you think that you have to utilize social media to get to another level?
I mean, it depends on who you ask. The younger generation, yes, they depend on it and they need it. You know, that's their lifeline. If Michael was alive today, he wouldn't be living on social media. Beyonce doesn't live on social media. I mean, she posts stuff, or her publicists and stuff post stuff because, you know, the fans love just to kind of get an idea of what you're doing with your life. But at the end of the day, they're not sitting there constantly because they're too busy working. They're too busy trying to make that next big thing happen, or they're focused on that music video because, believe it or not, a music video does take time. People usually, when Beyonce did this whole Black is King on Disney, she did that last year. It was preparing. You know, you have to prepare. Preparation is a huge thing, and it takes months. If I know I need to drop this out, and she dropped her whole album, you know, on that whole thing was the whole album. So you have to prepare, take time, find your resources. going back to social media stuff, people don't need to do that because they rely on their numbers. They rely on their 400K followers to kind of do the work for them, spread the word. But you see it and you're just like, I don't know half of these kids. No disrespect. I love everybody's work. Everybody do your thing, but at the end of the day, I don't know who you are because you're not making those hits.
Yeah.
You're not making those dope videos that stand out. You're not at that level yet because you're so busy trying to be this social media star.
Yeah.
And that's what they are. They're all, like you said in the
Trying
beginning.
to keep up with like the...
And like you said in the beginning, everybody's an artist today, just like everybody's a dancer. We have, before it was like, you knew the dance community, but now it's just like everybody and their mama's a dancer. And I love that. I'm dance is for everybody. There's no, oh, you can't do this and do that. But when you talk about being a professional or taking it to that next level, it's a different mentality. Same thing with being an artist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think on your question a little bit, I think it's different too if you're already established or if you're up and coming.
Yeah.
I think that, and the first thing that comes into my mind when people talk about social media just for huge stars and stuff, like to answer your question at a basic level, I would just say no, because I think of Kendrick Lamar.
Oh, yeah.
I think that guy like rarely posts, or even Justin, it's like he's not out there with the nicest feed or whatever. So I think when you're established, it's way different than when you're coming up. I think when you're coming up, to just be with the culture of social media, and in 2020 you got to post a lot, but to take a step back, what we were talking about, and here's where people lose sight of shit, and I'm trying to get better at this. You guys are good at this, and I always fuck this up. Even though you got to post a lot on social media, or you have to be active, whatever you want to call it, as an up and coming artist, what you put out has to be good fucking shit.
Oh, yeah.
And that's where I would kind of lose sight of things. I think you guys were a lot better at being like, yo, Jacob, instead of posting 7 days a week, post 3 days a week, but make it great content. And I'd be like, no, dude, like, post shit that works, and let's post 7 times a week and get it.
Oh, yeah.
And I think like that mentality that I used to have is what a lot of artists have right now. So what are some things you're seeing? That was a mistake I was making, right? What are some things you're seeing amongst dudes like Ryan and up and comers? And I know you work with a couple other artists. Like, what are some mistakes that you think people are making in social media, outside of social media, just as an up and coming artist? Like, what are some mistakes?
Not doing their homework. I feel like that's the number one mistake everybody makes, is because in order to be great, you need to understand grades. I can't say I want to be the next big choreographer if I'm not looking at the ones that are relevant and the ones that were relevant, the ones that passed or whatever. And I feel like today, again, like I said, everybody's such a moving forward with everything, that they don't have time to look back. And looking back isn't bad.
But now with YouTube, you have no damn excuse.
Exactly.
Everything is up.
Everything.
Yeah.
But again, people, and if they do look up to somebody, it's somebody who's relevant today. It's not somebody who's done it for decades and decades and decades. You know what I'm saying? It's a mindset. And sometimes it's hard to break certain mindsets because people are so used to their own way, and they feel like their way is the way. So posting every day, again, and people have to, because they rely on it. Going back to, that's kind of their money maker, But if social media died, what would happen to everybody?
Yeah, and I think that's where people get confused with the authenticity part, because I think you made a great point earlier talking about like, you're never going to be the next Chris Brown because he has that title. You're going to be your own artist. But I think people take that too far, and they think, oh, I don't have to look up to the greats because I'm me. So it's like, I'm just going to do what I'm doing, and like, I'll fucking learn how to be great. But it's like, no, it's like, you got to be authentic, but also study from the greats and like use those two together. Because if you're only authentic and just channeling out everything that was great before, like, you're not going to really be able to get to that level.
And it's being humbled.
Yeah.
You need to be humble. When my mentor told me, he's like, a humble dancer will always go further than a cocky dancer, because when somebody knows it all, it's like, why do I need to work with you? If you know everything, if you say this, then you don't need me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So, and I feel like today that's kind of where it's at. So people are like, oh yeah, I have 1 million followers, I don't need anybody. It's like, okay, yes, but if something happened to the whole internet and around the world and that died, who are you?
Yeah, and And me and Jacob always talk about this shit too. Like, I think people get humility mistaken. They think that humility means, oh, I got to be shy and meek and timid and like not confident. But I think you could still be confident and say, you know what, like I'm fucking killing it. But being humble is like saying, but I have a long fucking way to go.
Yeah.
There's always more to learn.
And I have more. I'm a student. You know what I'm saying?
And I agree. And that's how it is with me. Like, I'm confident in what I can do.
Yeah.
If there's something I can't do, I find the people that can do it. If I'm doing a music video and it caused Latin or ballroom dancing, I know basics, but if I have an idea where I need it to be advanced, I'm not going to be like, oh, I could do it and do it. It just looks completely. So when other people see it that know that style, they're like, who did this? You know what I'm saying? So just because you think an amazing idea is great doesn't mean everybody else does.
Yeah.
You know, it's just because some people are so like, this is what it is and this is what's going to be. And they don't have room to dissect and break away and break out and, you know, blah, blah, blah.
And I think people know deep down if it's not good enough. You know what I'm saying? I think, but
sometimes. Sometimes.
But deep down though, because I think that they just won't look at themselves in the mirror. And I've done this a lot throughout my life because I know they're not able to look at the mirror and say, you know what? Yeah, I'm pretty good, but that guy's way fucking better than me, and I need to listen to him. And I'm not at the level that I need to be. I thought I was, you know, I was hiding that behind like, you know, editing or whatever it was, but you know.
No, I get it. But again, it's just, you're right. You know, some people don't.
Okay.
Like some people, they kind of feel like it's great no matter what they do, you know, and they have that ego already because they hear it. And going back to what you said before about honesty, you know, their circle's always blowing their ego up. Oh, great. Oh, so sick. Oh my God. So in their head, everybody else are haters. In their head, everybody else is bad.
What does Tim Grover say in Relentless? He's like, you know, people, big basketball stars get big and they start building their entourage, and he calls them professional dick holders.
Oh yeah.
Like people who just like are there to like do whatever they want, and they won't say anything that constructive because they don't want to lose them as a friend.
Oh yeah.
You know.
And I mean, I've been in those circles before.
Yeah.
But to me, at the end of the day, it's like somebody who was mentoring me always corrected me. You're doing it wrong. You're doing this wrong. And I've been dancing forever, and I've been kicked out of rehearsals because I didn't catch up, or I wasn't, you know, catching up to as fast as the choreography was. And they're like, what are you doing in here? Get out. In front of all freaking 20 dancers, you know, calling me. That's kind of like, but when I went out, I didn't sit there and be like, oh, this is it, and feel defeated. I was like, okay, what am I doing wrong? And again, it was I was barely learning like dancing because this is my beginning stages. You know, I couldn't pick up choreography as like these dancers that have been doing it since they were this big, like 5 years old. You know, that wasn't me. So it's kind of like, you could be hard on yourself, but when you have somebody who uplifts you, it's like the best feeling. And like I said, I had good voices in my head when I got kicked out. Like, you could do this. This is nothing. You know, if you want to be somewhere, this is what it's going to take.
Yeah.
You know, artists today, you tell them, no, you're doing a bad job, they start to feel defeated. They start to beat themselves up, and they start to sit there and say, oh, I suck. It has nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
You know, you're going to be getting that a lot. Yeah. Even the biggest artists today, Chris Brown gets a lot of shit, you know, talk about him. People are like, oh, he sucks, he's this and that. But you can't take away his passion. You can't take away his craft. You can't take away everything he's done. You could hate him as a person, but you can't sit there and diss his work when everything he's done is like, he puts in a lot, you know.
Okay, now let's be honest here, because I've heard this question like said before by people. Michael Jackson and Chris Brown, okay? Two amazing, great artists. I would argue and say I'm an all-time Michael Jackson fan, so I would say he's the greatest of all time, right? But dancing-wise, performing-wise, do you think Chris is a better dancer than Michael? They're different, but, you know.
Yay, no.
I would say yes.
Of course, because you see the energy.
Okay.
And that's what it is. You see him doing the flips. You see him doing the crumping. You see him doing the... But when you look at power, and when you look at the crisp...
The stillness.
The just standing there for 5-10 minutes.
Like this.
And exactly, just with some type of presence to where people will still faint without you. And then when you talk, it's even everybody's dying.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So
That's true.
that type of, and that is a performance in itself.
Yeah.
You know, so when it comes to style of dance, Chris is, yes, he's great at his street style, but when it comes to that professional, you can't touch this, it's Michael.
Invincible feeling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Even the way his body rolls were, even the way he moves side to side, there was just something about it that Chris, when he does it, it's just Chris. You know, it's just, you just see that. But when Michael does it, it's like, whoa, there's
It's like he's not human.
yeah, he's, and again, people try to mimic Michael all the time. And there's been people coming close, but only thing they lack is that passion, because Michael didn't try to compare himself to and try to be like everybody else. Michael was just Michael. And that's what made him stand out from everybody else. And that's why when people try to mimic him, they can't, because you can't mimic somebody who is in their own selves. You know, it's impossible.
Damn.
Wow. I'm thinking that I feel like you guys think differently. Like he's like, yes, Chris, and you're like, yes, Michael. But I think a lot of it too just has to do with generational differences.
Of
Like,
course.
you know,
For
you
sure.
guys
Of course.
grew up in completely different times and stuff like that.
I'm an
but-
80s baby. Hello.
Yeah. That was his like prime.
Yeah.
Right?
And when I just don't want artists to get, like, I think what you're saying is very encouraging in a way, because I feel like even this has happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to you. It's like, fuck, am I ever going to be that great?
Yeah.
You know, am I ever going to be that great? But it's like, dude, you can be the voice of your own generation.
Of course.
You know? And I
course.
feel like Michael and Chris obviously are from different generations. You can be that guy that everybody who's like 16 right now, in a couple years, you're there, Michael. You know?
Okay.
And I think that, because I'm a metalhead, right? So like if you talk to me about Metallica or Megadeth or any of these things, like I'll sit there and be like, well, no, these guys are the greats. This guy, this and that, whatever.
course,
So,
of
you know, you
course.
talk to me about that kind of stuff. But the one thing that I've realized is just that, of course, everyone's great in their own way. Like
course.
Michael, Chris, they have their differences, you know. But you can totally just be the new thing, one of the greats in your, I just don't know if they're, basically what I'm trying to say, I just can't choose one. I just don't
Yeah.
think that there is one. Like if you ask me who's better, Michael Jackson or Chris Brown, I'd be like, I can't choose, dude.
And I agree. It's like you can't, because it's like Rihanna. I love me some Rihanna.
Yeah.
You know, J-Lo. People are like, who's better? You know, but this is like, you know, J-Lo's Mama J-Lo. You know, she's been in the game for a long time. You know, and Rihanna, she's been in it just as, you know, still missing a few years, but she's still been up there.
Yeah.
You know, it's
So, okay, how about this question? Do you think that in order to create a superstar, they have to dance? Do you think superstars have to dance, or you're not a superstar?
well, I mean, you always have your, and back in the day, you had to know how to dance, sing, and act, you know, because it was the triple threats. You know, if you had that, you're the next big thing. Today, dancing's, I mean, look how big the dance world is. I mean, look how big dancing is. So yes, dancing is like something that if you want to be relevant in a dancing genre type of scene, you know, Chris Brown, I always will go back to Chris because, you know,
Please do. He's my favorite. So.
it's just because he's one of those dancing artists. You see him, you see a dancer. You know, Michael's, you see him, you see a dancer. Usher, you see him, you see a dancer. So everybody has a dancing ability, and you know, and how they craft it and what they study makes them separate from each other. Freaking Usher, he studied Broadway and stuff. So he knows how to do the tapping and he knows how to do all of that. Chris Brown can't do that. But Chris Brown could sit there and crump the shit out of freaking Usher in 2 seconds. Because again, they're amazing at their own crafts. You know, and that's why you can't sit there and say who's better. Because they're all different people. You know, they're all award-winning artists, gold, platinum, everything that you could think of. So it's just almost like, what's your preference? You know, you like Usher, you like Chris better. You know, and if you like Usher more, then of course you're going to talk about Chris. You know what I'm saying? But that's how it is with the younger generation. You like this one guy that has 1 million freaking views and fun, good music over somebody who actually has good music, but because this kid has a certain look, he looks cute, you know.
Interesting looking.
Yeah, he has something that pops. That the other person may have amazing music, but that one person has, but that's how it is in the industry. They always look at who, you're a product. And if I'm a product, I have to look like people want to be attracted to me. I have to look a certain way. And some people have it and some people don't. And the people that don't have it have the good talent and have that good thing. They just don't have that opportunity.
Dude, like, I instantly just thought of Jacob Lattimore when he said that. Like, I think he is the most, like, underrated, like, artist, like, ever. Like, dude, like, he is a superstar. Of course. A superstar. And, like, I'm watching him dance and move and just his energy, and I'm like, this guy is like probably the smoothest dude. Like,
but who do you
we have.
compare him? Like, for me, when I see the Jacobs, I think of the Omarions.
Okay.
I think of the Ushers and stuff, and that's kind of where it gets tricky.
Yeah.
Because now either you're going to be better than them, or you're going to be under them. Because to try to be leveled with them, it's complicated, so it's either you have to be better.
It's politics and all that shit too.
Tons of that, and that's kind of how it is in the industry. People compare. You're either a white boy, then guess what? There's 20 other white boys that are out there. How do you separate yourself from them? So people can change their style, they change the way they look, they get a little bit more edgier, just to stand out. Jaden Smith, perfect example. He stands out a lot. He went full out, but he has that mentality of he doesn't care.
That's his like persona.
Exactly. Yeah. And because of that, it's worked for him. He gets a lot of attention. He gets, his music. I love me some Jaden. Yeah, shout out to Jaden. But it's just one of those things to where he now stands out from the crowd because of how he's just portraying himself. So in order to be up there, you need to figure out, you either look better than them or you look under them. And Jacob, I love him to death, but he's kind of, you're right, he is that underdog. So he has to work extra hard to kind of stay on top. And back then, he was, when he first came out doing all his thing, he was that big thing. But again, like I said, as years go on, you either die down or...
I mean, and the way I'm seeing it, though, is I think that when he kind of gets, like, a huge role on, then, like, he's going to be able to stay because he's built all those skills, like, in his time. Like,
I mean, but he's
hard,
he works with Roro. I love me some Robo. Robo is one of the people who I looked up to. He's danced and choreographed for so many people back in the days, and still today, he still does his thing. So Jacob has a good team. He has resources. It's just now, how do you get to that next level? And that just becomes, again, politics. It becomes.
Do you think a label has a big part of that? Do you think that's a necessity nowadays?
No. Because there's so many independent people, people who are so many independent labels, and even artists who are independent. But again, with no money, a label definitely does help a lot because it gives you that cushion because they fund everything because they know they're going to get their money back. So they have to push you or they shelve you. And do you know how many artists I've worked with that got shelved and they couldn't do nothing because they're contracted? So either you buy out your contract. So labels are good and bad at the same time. You know what I'm saying? So it just depends on the person.
I think something that I'm realizing, to touch on just money and the labels and everything, and you've helped us out with this too. I couldn't really like get over this when I was just starting with Ryan and shit. I would think of like, we're gonna spend $50 on something. Fuck, dude, like, oh my God. But I think artists need to realize that up and coming artists, you're starting a business.
Of course.
It takes money to make money. Ryan told me scared money doesn't make money, and you got to invest in it. And even you're helping me realize that more and more. It's just like, dude, you want $1,000 video, gotta pay $1,000.
Yeah.
And you gotta put money into it and stuff. And there's so many free resources. I think people get kind of tricked. Like, oh, Instagram's free. I can put my stuff on SoundCloud. It's only like, $20 to put it on DistroKid or whatever. But it's like, dude, if you really want to be serious about this, you gotta save up some fucking dough and invest it. Pay for it like we paid for the no help video, and pay for resources and do what you got to do. And a label can totally help with that and stuff. But everybody's trying to go like that indie route and stuff. And we're doing that inspired by Russ and all that stuff. But do you think that it's just like so fucking important to put money into it?
Yay and nay.
Okay.
And why I say that is because you could put $1 million in something and it doesn't do anything. And you could put $1,000 in something and it blows up so much. I mean, back in the day, I worked with artists, with our new artists back, 10 years ago, 9 years ago. This one guy who I basically did with you, developed him. He was in a boy band. I took him out of that boy band and helped develop him. And we worked on his dancing. We were literally in the studio 5-6 hours a day. Monday through Saturday, because he was dedicated. He wanted it. So his investment, he understood, and it worked because he did a Europe tour. You know, he went all over Europe and UK and just performing in stadiums. His biggest crowd, I think, was 51,000 people. So he invested a little, and he gained so much. And why he stopped was because, you know, at the end of the day, you kind of figure out, I love this, but this is not my passion. You know, so you do it. So like I said, you could spend so much money and find out this is not what you want to do, and all that money is gone, you know?
Wow.
So it's one of those things to where you got to be smart. You know, you find people with certain talents and certain things that you, just like you guys, you bring certain people to the team. If I have $1,000, guess what? I have to be very smart. How do I want to shoot this? Because I need this video to look like $1 million, you know? So, but it's possible. It's possible because I've shot videos that were only $2,000 and we made that thing look amazing, you know? And I've shot videos that were $600 videos, you know, but how the person that they invested, who was the director, he basically got all the money. It was well worth it, you know, because his eye and the way he shot things and how he moved his camera and the way it just looked like it was an expensive video, you know. So I always say, if you're going to invest money into something, make sure it's worth it, and make sure you're smart of how and where it goes. Because if not, then guess what? All you did was just spend a whole bunch of money that wasn't needed. You know, so yeah.
Damn.
Good morning.
My guy.
Yeah.
Dude, I feel like there's so much we can get into, but
I could talk for hours, literally.
yeah, I could talk for hours. But
love
we've been
it.
here. I mean, I want to have you back.
Yes.
For sure, because we only touched the surface on a lot of stuff that
Oh,
I
yeah.
want to talk about,
Oh,
you know.
yeah.
But yeah, man, I appreciate your insight. And I mean, if people want to reach out to you or anything, is that cool?
Of course.
Where can people find you at?
I'm in my Instagram, Stixx Entertain.
Stixx.
Yeah, at Stixx Entertain. That's kind of where you get to see my work. You get to see a lot of like little things that I still got to work on my content, but that's kind of the idea where you get.
Hell yeah. Well, dude.
One last thing I wanted to say too is like, when I first met this guy in person, I was so intimidated.
Oh no.
Like in a good way though. Like it was one of those things where like your energy just, let's just say this. I left our meeting, the first meeting we have, inspired, because I was like, I want that kind of energy. I want to come off confident and magnetic like that. You know, you had your sunglasses on and shit. I'm like
I do now.
I can't see.
Those never come off.
I'm like, I can't
Nope.
see. We always make this joke that at your funeral one day, like
Oh, no.
on the way down the road, you're gonna be wearing your sunglasses.
In the
and shit.
casket? Yeah, you're just
and
gonna
they're
have
gonna
sunglasses
remove them. And
Actually, I'm gonna be a diamond. No, I really am.
Make you
Okay.
into a
I'm
diamond?
gonna be a diamond. Yeah.
Put mini sunglasses on the diamond.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
we always make the joke that we're gonna like remove your sunglasses. It's gonna be like blank, like like just skin.
Okay, hold on. If we're sharing stories now, okay.
Oh, I love it.
When Ryan first introduced me to you and we had that meeting at Starbucks, the usual Starbucks, you know. So that was right off the tail end of us ending a relationship with some fucking shitty ass people.
Oh, wow.
And I
Okay,
didn't
yeah.
want to meet anyone new in the industry, like to work with or
Yeah.
whatever. And we were working with these two fuckers, you know, or whatever. And like just to I was just like, I had a bad taste in my mouth, which you
Yeah.
know, like I was you know just getting in the industry, and I was like, oh, the industry's fucked, whatever. And Ryan was like, bro, there's this guy I really want you to meet. His name is Stixx. He's like very well experienced, just a great guy, whatever. And so we went to that meeting, and I even told Tiffany, and Tiffany was like, where are you guys going? I was like, honestly, if I gotta tell this guy to fuck off, I don't give a fuck, dude. I'll tell him. I don't care. And then she was like, where are you guys going? I was like, I'm gonna go tell this guy we don't want to work with him, whatever. And bro, we get in the car. I met the dopest dude ever.
Oh,
Straight
thank
up,
you.
like within 2 minutes of meeting you, we were talking, and you were just cool. And I was like, it's what you make it, with relationships. You're going to run into horrible people, whatever. But, that taught me to be more open-minded and stuff. But I don't know if I've ever shared that.
No,
but
you
yeah,
didn't.
that ended up leading to a great relationship
so
and
funny.
friendship and stuff. But yeah, sorry.
Oh, you're good.
Because you were cool. You're cool as fuck.
Yeah, that's the first time I heard this story. You better watch your back.
Yeah, that's my one regret, but
I'm
yeah.
excited. It's so funny because I remember I reached out to you. I DM'd
Yeah,
you.
yeah.
Yeah, I was just like, this guy looks interesting. But yeah, that's
And
another
looks
story.
way different.
You
Yeah.
definitely did.
This guy changed me, man.
Yeah, man. For the better. You changed
Yeah,
it
for the better.
Amen.
But we got a lot of good stuff coming, man. Yeah, I mean, just in that year,
Oh, yeah.
like to look back on like a year, it's like one, that went by hella fast.
So fast.
And two, what are we in? September of 2019 was just like
Yeah.
so different.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
So the mentality, the Right Now EP, we were about to go into the school tour next year.
That was a year ago.
Like, I had blonde hair, I think.
Yes.
You know?
I think you did too.
Yeah,
I'm glad you changed that. I was
Yeah, but thank you for an amazing year, bro.
I'm
Wow.
happy. I'm happy.
crazy.
And there's so much more to come.
Yep.
Definitely, man.
So much
Cool.
more.
All right, people. Episode 9. Thank you, Stixx.
Yeah, thank
What's
you.
in your mind for you and for I? I'm trying to decide from the look in your eyes, yeah. I mean my signs, but your feelings inside you. I'm messing up my mind and my spirit, babe.